Hello everyone, this is our attic. Now in order to weatherize our attic and our house, I want to add insulation under the plywood and also air seal all the ducts. This will prevent hot air from escaping, leading to high energy costs. So what I want to do is I want to open up all this plywood because our attic is finished for storage. And I want to add insulation and air seal everything. So here we go. Okay, so I've lifted one of the plywood 4x8s, I think. So you can see here what kind of insulation is already existing. It's fairly thin. Really could be quite a lot thicker. Seems to be some kind of old fiberglass or rock wool. Not sure what. You can see it's very thin. So I want to replace all this with some R19 fiberglass paste. Here's us at Home Depot buying insulation. All right, finally got all the rolls of insulation into the attic. I mean, it's kind of dark up here, but you can see just how many rolls I have here. There's 23 total. And so the next step is to try to take up all this plywood, remove the old insulation, air seal all the cracks, and then finally I can start installing all of this. This is an example of the leaks that need to be sealed. You can see there's just a giant gap between the stud and the drywall, so that needs to be sealed. And also I was just looking over here and there's like a giant gap in there. I'm not really sure what's in there, but yeah, it's like right in there. Don't think you can see anything in there because it's so dark, but there's just nothing there. Well, that sucked. There's barely any space. Barely any space to move. So I think I'm just gonna cut more holes in the drywall. Will make my life a little easier. Alrighty, come here. Oh, it's stuck somewhere. All right, let's see if it works this one. Oh, okay, we've got movement. All right, this left one needs a little coaxing, but that right one is moving pretty well. If I was at less of an angle, like if I cut the drywall here, it wouldn't really be a problem. So yeah, I'm gonna just try to get this one out. Yep, that's working pretty well. Yep, there it is. Awesome. All right, come over here. Okay, that one's really stuck. I'll have to get it manually. Here's an example of how I air sealed the cracks. You follow the stud from bay to bay, and you fill in all the cracks. Here's another example of air sealing, but around electrical wires. After 10 days, or nights rather, we are finally done. So you can see fiberglass bats now in every nook and cranny, as far as I could reach, all air sealed. So I used exactly the amount of fiberglass bat that I had, 23 rolls. I also used exactly enough of the spray foam. I used, I think, 9 cans. So, man, it's a lot of physical effort to get in every corner here. But hope this is going to be worth it. So yeah, there were once 23 rolls of fiberglass sitting right here, and now it's all in the attic. All that fiberglass. Now I also want to blow in cellulose insulation, and I want my attic to be properly ventilated, so I installed rafter vents in every bay. In order to preserve storage space in my attic, I want to raise the floor, and now the attic is finished with drywall, and so I'm going to need to remove the existing drywall so I can raise the plywood. Here's how I find screws in the drywall. You use a magnet, and the magnet sticks to where the heads of the screws are. I started building platforms for the plywood to rest on. So I need another 10 inches of blown insulation. So instead of doing just a solid 2x10, which is really heavy, I built these. So it's made of 2x3s. They're about 8 feet long, because that's what my car could carry. So you can see I've built quite a few of them. So this will lie on the existing joists that are up there in the attic, and then the plywood will go on top and the insulation will just go down here, which I'll be blowing in. One thing about constructing the platforms, studs are usually bowed in one way. So you can see this one is has a curvature that's kind of like this, goes down and up to the other side. So that's normal. So ideally you would want the curve the highest in the middle. So ideally it's like supported on one end and then curves up and then goes down to the other side. So in this case, this one's upside down. This bottom part's going to be the top. This one's going to be the bottom. So that's why I have it this way. So that way you can imagine if there's weight being put on the platform, the wood naturally tries to go straighter, versus if you had it like this, the wood would just sag more. Here's an example of it being right side up. So you can see how there's a very slight bend, and it's highest in the middle. And same thing for the bottom. So we have this top side's going to be the top, this is going to be the bottom. I just did the corner. So this is approximately what it's going to look like. So we have all the raised platforms and the plywood's going to sit on top of it. And then when I blow in the insulation, I'll just blow under the plywood. So it's going to fill up from the fiberglass bed all the way to the top of this platform, and the plywood will just go on top. And then it's time to do the same, but for the entirety of the attic. Progress. And underneath is going to be cellulose. In order to connect the platforms with the attic hatch, I constructed an attic hatch wall. The wall is made of 2x12s with a thinner strip of wood attached to it, and the weather stripping sits on top of that. And a big piece of foam board with wood attached to it sits on top of the weather stripping, which air seals the attic hatch. And now we're ready to blow in cellulose, so now we're back at Home Depot. A lot of people were saying online that blowing insulation went very quickly for them, 3 hours for 30-40 bags, but for me, I had 40 bags and it took me 7 hours. Not entirely sure what I did wrong. Or maybe my machine was just slow. Blowing insulation is pretty dusty, so make sure you wear a mask. You can also use your hand to control where exactly the insulation blows. Here's some before and after shots from my FLIR gun. So the last step is more airflow for our closed off soffit. So you have these vents, 4 inches, and they have mesh on the back to prevent insects from getting in. So we're going to be drilling a bunch of these holes and installing these right up there, facing this way. The vent should face towards the house. We made our mark, and we just go like that. A little while later, and the first of many is installed. And that's it. This is what the insulated, ventilated attic looks like now. It's been a long journey on this project, but looking forward to winter to see how much warmer the house is going to be. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was useful to you.